I have a question for you. Do you think you can rule Persia?
And we have an answer for you. Probably not.
Probably not.
Welcome everybody
Love it.
to a one-of-a-kind collaboration between our two podcasts. On one side, So You Think You Can Rule Persia.
And on the other side, the Alexander Standard.
So, my name is Umberto, and I am one of the hosts of So You Think You Can Rule Persia. My pronouns are he, him.
And hello, my name is Serial. I am the other host of So You Think You Can Rule Persia, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hello, my name is Dustin, one of the hosts of the Alexander Standard, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Meredith. I'm the other host of the Alexander Standard, and my pronouns are she, hers.
And this is the crossover that everyone asks for, and if they didn't ask for it, they're still gonna get it, because we all knew it was gonna happen one day.
It had to happen. Like Alexander's death, it always had to happen.
When you have a bunch of Alexes that are just rattling around in the barrel of cyberspace, they've got to meet at some point. Mm-hmm. Because it does beg the question, does it not, as Sariel eloquently asked, who can rule Persia? Or can you rule Persia? God, there's just gonna...
Well, we're still trying to find the answer to that question. It's been some episodes. We still have some more to go.
Yes.
But we do remember the couple of episodes we dedicated to Alexander. Oh, Alex. Oh, the son, the prodigal son.
What a brat.
The golden boy. The completely unhinged idiot. I have so many opinions about this man.
Every time...
No, most of them not great.
Yeah, every time, Sariel, I would listen and I would hear you rage about Alex, I would just nod in agreement wherever I was.
We love him. We hate him.
Somebody else agrees with me.
I know. Well, and I also was like, all right, like, it's not just Dustin, like, filling my head with all these ideas for years. I'm like, no, other people don't like him either.
Yes, so we thought it was, as we said, inevitable, obligatory, or just downright a cool idea for us to join our two podcasts together for a brief crossover. We might do again, who knows? And since we talked about the same guy and his brother and his son and all of his co-workers, let's just compare notes.
Sure, you
Hostile
can call
work
them that.
environment.
Oh my gosh, toxic. And see what we thought. And we posed the question to all of you, and we had three replies. We had three
excellent replies.
3,000 million excellent replies. So we're answering all of these questions today. And I'm already talking too much. So we're just going to toss it back and forth. Yeah, man. Do it.
Yeah, we'll have fun. We'll laugh at Alex, wonder why he didn't stay home and if things would have been better otherwise. That's a question. That's an option. Who knows?
So because we're being so cordial with each other and like asking like who's going to go first and just deferring to each other, I think I'll just be the funny guy, and I have one that's been burning that I'd want to ask.
Go for it.
So in episode 18, so the part 1 of Alexander the Great for you, Umberto, you mentioned that you speculated that when Alexander, after the battle of Battle of Issos, when he's second time around, he defeats Darius and he's swinging down through Lebanon and Egypt. You mentioned, or you speculate that it's possible that Alexander was doing that because he was trying to prevent someone from cutting off his supply lines or hitting him in the flank. And my question to you then was, how did you get so tall?
Well, it was a lot of food and time and genes, and all those worked together quite well to ensure that I would grow up to be tall, at least taller than Alexander,
Yes.
which apparently doesn't take much.
Ooh, shots fired!
Excuse me.
Shots fired.
Listen, I have many bad opinions about Alexander. I don't like him that much, but I am here for short king representation, and I'm just happy that he is like around my height for once. So stop this nonsense.
Stop it.
How tall? How tall?
Nobody's allowed to make fun of Alexander being short.
Well, that's a good question, Meredith. Look at you coming in with the actual question.
How tall was he?
Yeah, like, I mean, we know short, but what is short? And if you can't hear it, I'm doing air quotes.
Those are not audible usually, yeah.
Audio medium.
But I'm sure that everyone can hear it this time. Yeah, so did you see anything of like an estimate of like how tall he was?
I can't remember what the source for this was, but I think it was comparing him and Porus, but I think he was roughly 5 feet or 150 centimeters tall.
Okay, so
I
that
beat
would
him.
that actually would
Yes.
be short for the ancient
Yes.
world, yeah.
Macedonians are small people, and if you look at their faces, you punch them and you'd hurt your hand.
Yes. Yeah. No, they were definitely a stocky people.
Indeed.
And I mean that as a person who probably would be described as stocky himself. Well, Meredith always calls me short, but I always remind her that I'm average height for an adult male. But
Your average height for the time, like Napoleon.
I'd be a giant Macedonian. And that's kind of my point. Yeah, it's because when we say that he's short, we have to keep in mind. This is what I've told my students before, is that when they watch the movie 300, for instance, which how much time do you have for the inaccuracies, right? That's a given.
We have a
We
full
had
episode
exactly
for it.
one full episode for it, so,
Oh yeah,
if you want to check it out, you can.
is that on the Patreon?
No, it's on the regular feed. It's like a 30.5 or something.
Oh,
It's our April Fool's episode, so
Yes, exactly.
brilliant.
the Snyder Cut.
Nice. Well, everyone go listen to So You Think You Can Rule Persia's 300 review. But I would always tell my students, like, aside from everything, any impression that the Spartans were these ginormous bodybuilders needs to be disabused immediately, because every Greek in the ancient world would be like 5'4", 150 pounds, soaking wet. So if we're saying that Alexander is shorter than that, that's saying something, man.
Yeah.
Listen, I know I am short, right? I am.
We pass no judgment,
One-
Sario.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm 154 or like 5'1" for those of you with freedom units over there. And like, it's honestly, it's more noticeable when I am further up in Europe, because I live in Germany. But like, I am Spanish, and around the people I grew up with, it's more of an average height. So it's definitely what is short and what is tall. It depends where you are and who you're with. So
Indeed, yeah. I love the idea of Alexander as being of having like the crooked head, though. I found that to be a very fascinating description of him.
That's a very common pose in all the busts. It's just sort of like slightly looking to the side.
I think it's just the aesthetics.
He's a confused puppy. Yeah.
It's like,
I do get that impression of Alexander as perpetually confused puppy, but then a confused puppy who answers that confusion with rage.
Yeah, no, he's not as lovable or cute. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Like-
you can tell he liked the Iliad since it starts with rage, and I feel like that's his thought process
Sing
as well.
to me, muse of the anger of Achilles. Yeah.
Yeah, he took that part of Achilles. The murdering.
That part, and then stopped. And he was like, I've got all I need to know. Yeah. That actually is something else, like whenever I would tell my students, whenever like they're forced to read part of the Iliad or something like that, I'm like, I know this is dusty, Western literature. I get that, you all, and yes, even I'll tell you it's boring in places, but then I lean in, I'm like, but y'all, you want violence? You need to read this. Because Homer has way too much fun thinking of interesting ways he can tell you how a spear went through somebody else. And I feel like the Alexander's the
He
fanboy.
didn't have to describe every detail, Like, it would have been fine, but...
Yeah, it's like we didn't need to know that, but I know it now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Homer. Wow.
Oh, I know one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to start off with, and maybe we can splice to the front. I
Yes.
wanted to take this opportunity to finally say how much of a fan I am of So You Think You Can Rule Persia.
Oh, that's so
well,
sweet.
That's
Thank
very
you.
kind of you.
And,
Thank you.
and if you haven't,
We don't know what we're doing. We're very new at
Same.
this, so
Yes.
you know.
absolutely the same thing.
Yes.
All the little commercials and stuff. Those are becoming an act of desperation now because I go into like I have
Those are excellent commercials, and you're actual historians, which is qualifies you more than us.
Exactly.
no well in turn you humble us with your. This is such an overlooked period of history, and it's such an appropriated period of history. Everyone, Alexander the Great is the reason for this crossover, right? I mean, so I think that what you're doing is great, and I think it's a great podcast. It's an overlooked period of history. It needs a Perso-centric perspective. Like, I had a student once, and he was Iranian, and he was just frustrated with just all of these portrayals and perspectives that are put forward about Persia.
Yeah.
So this kind of podcast works to undo a lot of those problems. You do a great job, and it's hilarious, and it's informative. And what as my final comment, is I'm impressed every single time because, like, for instance, the episodes where we definitely overlap, you find things that I didn't even find, and I didn't know about. And that is just so cool to me. And I'm going to shut up now.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some notes here, Meredith, so if you need to tell me to stop talking at any point, you can just write on
Go
that.
for it.
I'll just pat your leg.
Oh, actually, while I have it in mind, I'm gonna go for a point that I noticed while listening to your podcast.
Let's go.
Ready.
Because apparently you believe, or at least it feels like you believe, that Heracles, the little lost boy, was actually Alexander's bastard child, while I do not.
Oh no, I think well, maybe we don't really talk about it in the podcast, but that is like a daily conversation around the apartment. I'm like, he wasn't real though.
Wow.
Was he? Was he real? Did that exist?
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that. So we just finished Polypericon. Spoiler alert.
He sucks.
Polypericon
Yeah.
links up with this supposed Heracles when he's about 17 years old.
Just finds him chilling.
And I just kind of find it hard to believe that if he really was Alexander's son, he would have been left alone for 17 years.
Yeah.
So I think the most I'd go is, yeah, maybe there was an illegitimate son. I'm sure he was done away with pretty quickly. And I think probably who Polypericon claims to have found was just like a kid. He was like, shut your mouth and say like that you are.
If everything goes well, you'll be king. If not,
You kind of look like him. You have the hair.
That confused face.
Tilt your head to the side, kid.
Tilted. Yeah, so I think, I'd probably take that middle of the road. If he existed, I'm sure he was done away with fairly quickly. Do you think he was real?
Umberto, I think, first of all, what a great question. And second of all, I have a complicated answer for you.
Ooh, love them.
I think that Barcina, Heracles' mom, I think that probably happened. I was, when we were doing the episode on Polypericon, and all of them really, because they cross over so much, I noticed that a lot of historians have engaged this debate, and a lot of them are skeptical because they just feel like this was an invented story. But at the partition of Babylon, we may recall that Nearchus, another of Alexander's Greek friends, when they were like, what do? Who do we give the crown to? Like, Nearchus, is the one that, perks up and he says, like, aha, but there's another one, give it to him, this child from Barcina. It just seemed like too present of a theme to have been the product of fabrication. So I think that the marriage to Barcina was probably a thing, that was probably real, but the idea of, did Polypericon actually find Heracles in Pergamum when he was 17 years old? Because as Meredith makes a good point, you mean he was just left alone? No one killed this kid? No, that wasn't him. I don't believe that. I think that was, like you all were saying, like, let's just, like, you look like him, tilt your head to the side, get angry for no reason, act like Alexander.
Very stable man.
Yes. I don't think that was really him. I think the relationship with Barcina was probably real, and there may have been a Heracles, but he probably would have been murked very soon, very early on. But
Okay, fair enough.
but the academic answer is we'll never know.
Shrouded in antiquity.
Yeah, well, guess what? We'll never know anything, really, because, you know.
That's when you're going down the deconstructionist abyss right there, because then it's just like, does any of this happen? It could have been a giant prank played on us by the Greeks.
I mean, I'm
Somebody
just
just
saying,
sat
if you're
down,
going
wrote
to go,
thousands of years.
if you're going to give me that point of view of like, you know, we can't be sure. Like, of course we can't be sure.
No, that's fair.
Time machines are not a thing, so you know.
Absolutely a fair perspective. My short answer is I don't think that was him that Polypericon found.
Way too convenient.
Yes. Well, I actually have a reply where I have my own question, in response. Mm-hmm. You seem to be of the impression that Arrhidaeus was much more active than a lot of historians seem to think, in the sense that you think, am I getting the impression that you feel that he was the one driving the funeral carriage and that he had a satrapy for a time?
Yeah, that was based on the papers of Dr. Alexandra Morris, who was very helpful and sent us her doctoral thesis and everything. She'd done some work on that in the ancient world. And so that I thought it was sufficiently persuasive because essentially according to the papers, it looks like there are several Arrhidaeuses around, and the idea is, okay, but why does nobody ever specify like Arrhidaeus son of X or Y, like they do, Ptolemy son of Lagus or Alexander son of Philip and so on. But Arrhidaeus is never specified. It's always just, oh, Arrhidaeus did this, and it seems like the custom, or the consensus, was to, say, oh, no, this was one Arrhidaeus did this thing, another Arrhidaeus did this other thing because, oh, he was incapable and he couldn't do what is ascribed to him. So I thought it was persuasive enough that it's weird that nobody would specify, oh, Arrhidaeus, this Arrhidaeus from Cassander's family or whatever, did this thing, while the actual King Arrhidaeus did not. So I thought it was persuasive enough, and it's probably more. I mean, clearly Arrhidaeus, for whatever reason, was thought not fit to rule by the nobility. He needed a regent, but I think it's probably more something that was not that he was unable, but he was perceived as unable to rule. I think that is sort of the image I've formed in my mind of what Arrhidaeus is like.
Oh, yeah. I think we went over that in our episode on Arrhidaeus. I mean, it's the multiple theories of, was he ever intended to be, was he always a placeholder? Was he holding the throne into Alex the Fourth? But, yeah, it just definitely does seem that it was always just kind of held in the background. It hasn't been released yet, but, I came across a scene between Polypericon and Arrhidaeus that actually shows him doing stuff, and it's very interesting because it's exactly what you were saying, the whole idea of just kind of having people around him to kind of monitor him or guide him. There's an embassy that's going on and somebody says something, they make a joke, and then all of a sudden Arrhidaeus just bursts out in laughter, even though no one else thought it was funny. And then another envoy said something to Polypericon, and Polypericon told him to shut up, and when he told him to shut up, all of a sudden Arrhidaeus just gets angry, and he just grabs a spear, and he was going to stab the guy if Polypericon didn't throw his arms around him and just kind of take him away and stuff like that.
Yeah, I also sort of like the Uncle Claudius theory for Alexander's reign.
Yeah, that was a really good point.
Where Alexander murdered the rest of the family. If Arrhidaeus wants to keep alive, he needs to be as unthreatening to Alex as possible. Otherwise, he's going to get a spear to the face at some point. So,
because again, Alexander, a very calm and reasonable man.
My gosh.
Of course.
Personally, I'm a fan of this theory because I am a fan of the I, Claudius story, and because it makes a good story. I am not a historian, and this should not be taken.
I don't
as,
know if I
like,
believe it, but I
you
think
know.
it would be. It's a good story. Yeah.
It makes enough sense in the sense of, yes, Alexander was very protective of like his power, and if he felt threatened, there was, with his very explosive personality, there was a non-zero chance that he would just get rid of the person that he felt threatened by.
Well, that's interesting because, I mean, Alexander, on the one hand, this is the problem when you have a bunch of toxic masculine, frat boys who are told that they're perfect and nothing needs to change about them and they can do whatever they want.
How could that go wrong?
Never, right? It, like, historically, it never goes wrong. But, on the one hand, they just get these dueling kind of perspectives that about them. It's just like, on the one hand, oh, they're so kind, they're so generous, they're so loving, they're so merciful. On the other hand, it's just this like hair trigger rage where they just kill someone for disagreeing with them and stab their best friend, and then they have to have their guards come into their tent the next day and like, dude, you're Zeus's son, you can't do anything wrong, don't you know? And then Alexander's like, you mean it? I'm okay. But I say all that because I've always been intrigued by all the anger and all of the irrational behavior that you're talking about, which is all true, and yet I always found it kind of endearing that Alexander seemed to protect Arrhidaeus. Alexander saw, his brother as someone who was vulnerable to manipulation, and that's why he took him on his campaigns with him. Also why he didn't kill him. Just the idea that he loved him and he wanted to protect him. Because the moment Alexander died, everyone begins to manipulate Arrhidaeus. Everybody. Mm-hmm. And the I, Claudius theory is definitely a good narrative. I guess the only reason I would struggle getting behind it is because of just that manipulation you see, that everyone's just moving this guy around like a pawn. And it's...
Like I said, good story, probably not really the most, doesn't have the most weight.
But the idea of him flipping out and wanting to spear some guy just because one of his generals got mad, that tracks.
Well, that just shows the family resemblance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Philip, Alex, and Arrhidaeus, yeah. Baby Alex didn't have time to try and murder someone.
No.
But,
No, I sit there and imagine that alternative history where they proceed along with this idea of the co-kings of Arrhidaeus and baby Alex, and I look at Dustin, I'm like, well, like, one of them was going to have to kill the other eventually. That wasn't going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Arrhidaeus and Alex.
Yeah, I just imagined in a world where they continued on once Alex 4 grew up, I imagined one would have had to have knocked off the other.
Oh, yeah, because that's the other thing. It's just like, history tells us that co-kings always work.
Yeah, it's always an excellent idea.
They're only slightly worse than triumvirates. It's perfect.
God, every time, like, that's where, like, aren't nerd rages the cutest? Because I go into a nerd rage every time, like, when she'd be listening to Talos Rankium, and which was kind of how we got started, because I came up, it's adorable, I came up one day, I was like, we could do that, and I don't think there's a lot of other people who do it, and enter the Rexy Pod
And I
family.
just looked at him and I was like, well, there's all this.
I'm adorable. But, like, when she was listening to the episode on Constantine and his sons, and she like...
That's still a source of irritation to
Yeah.
this day. I'm like, you had done it, you stabilized it,
Yeah.
like, as a one person, and then at the end you're like, let's give it a 4.
Like,
And see what happens.
And it taps into, like, my inner, like, just kind of nerd rage, because I'm like, the Tetrarchy was there, had it set up, and Constantine's like, screw it, let's do one. And then, I'll just put it between my sons, they'll get along.
And their cousins.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think is what is the value of what we're presenting here in our podcast, because people like Constantine, or just like Alexander the Great, or anyone who has the words the Great attached to their name, they need another voice to point out how stupid these people could be sometimes.
Oh, yeah, my goodness. The greats generally have something horrifying about them that needs to be checked in.
And if not, that's suspicious. If not, that's probably because we're going from the mythologized, very, like,
Yeah, that's probably because they rewrote history to make sure
Yeah.
that it actually looked
Exactly.
good and it was fine.
Ooh, speaking of suspicious, I don't
Yes.
think it came up much in your episodes on Alexander because you didn't cover Philip, but we covered Philip just as a tester. Do you think Alex had Philip assassinated?
This is what I wanted to talk about too.
Well, that's definitely an interesting question. I'm pretty sure that he did. I think that he and Mama Olympias got together and were like, yes, let's get rid of Dad. I'll inherit everything. Mom, you kill everyone who stands in our way. Good. Home in time for dinner.
Right.
Sarah, what did you get out of that destruction? Did you think it was actually Artaxerxes IV who wanted to get rid of
Oh,
Philip
yeah, I
and things
heard
actually
about
turned
Oh
out
no,
fine?
no! There's no way. Regardless of who did it, I do not think it was Artaxerxes.
Here's how I heard that at first. Regardless of who did it, Alexander did it.
I don't know if it was Alexander, but there's no way. I don't know if it was an actual accident. I don't know if it was, but yeah, no, we can't go with the narrative of oh, it was the Persians because we were doing some other stuff. I don't.
We were doing some other stuff.
They were busy.
We were busy having puppet kings. It wasn't
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah. it's
No,
just-
I did love the setup in your episode though, where you're like, you remember how Philip was about to invade, and Sariel was like, yes. You're like, well, he's dead now, so.
So everything is fine, and the Achaemenid Empire will last for 1,000 years, and everything will be cool and fine.
Yeah, I mean, that Philip was assassinated, that's beyond question. He was stabbed, but I think for me, what sealed it that I
So you trust that he was assassinated.
Fair enough.
It's no one questions but wonder did he fall on his sword. It's no, we all believe
slip.
the sources are telling the truth. His ass got assassinated.
Yeah, but what for me seals it with Alexander's involvement is that it's Alexander's best friend Perdiccas that rides down the assassin
right, of
and then
course.
kills the assassin. And I'm like,
Well, that's what you said, I think, one time. It's just the rule number one of assassination, you gotta kill the assassin.
yeah, and when it's
Yeah.
your best
Yeah.
friend that goes and kills the guy that just killed your father, I have to see a link there.
Yeah.
Well, but it was vengeance. It was he also
heat of the
loved
moment.
Philip, and he had to avenge his best friend's father. Clearly, this is how you do things.
No need for questioning. That's for
Yeah, of
cowards.
course. Being an assassin is a dangerous job.
It also comes out in the next episode, but I'm trying to stop being so anti-Perdiccas, but this just tapped in that old latent rage. It's when I hear this, I'm in Perdiccas, and I'm Perdiccas, stupid Perdiccas.
This guy.
Feed your guys to crocodiles.
It wasn't on
Yeah,
purpose.
I didn't mind Perdiccas too much, but he did. It just felt like, come on, man, what are you even doing?
Yeah, it's just I'm going to make a list of all the things that are going
Yeah.
to destroy this empire. And that's my to-do list today. That's how Perdiccas woke up. So,
Yeah, I don't know if Perdiccas had actually done a good job. If the empire would have stayed together, it probably would have collapsed anyway. But he did not help it.
that's true.
Yeah, I do think as a whole, it was unsustainable. I don't think Alex would have held it. I kind of feel like the reason he kept traveling around to conquer more things was to not have to go back and kind of settle and say, all right, how do we
Oh yeah.
administer this?
I'm sure he not only what we bring up a lot in our episodes, or I bring it up a lot at least, is that he was focused on conquering, but he didn't want to rule. He just
Yeah.
wanted to win wars and have more achievements.
Yeah.
But not to actually make a feasible stable empire. But I do think it would make sense that he would have the knowledge or the what's this called? The awareness of I can just push that the longer I stay on this campaign,
Yeah.
the longer I don't have to look at the mess that I actually need to take care of. And who hasn't done that, honestly? You just procrastinate and you do something else and you're like, well, as soon as I'm done with this, I will take care of this other thing. But I can still work on this first. So
Yeah. That, real talk, that's something that has a lot of historical precedent. And it's one of those things that it's subjective and circumstantial when you analyze it, so you really can't prove it. But it does seem to be an undeniable correlation that these huge conquerors, Like, once they stop everything they had, like, falls apart, like the Mongols, you know, like, that empire lasted forever. Attila the Hun's empire lasted forever.
Yeah.
And that's, like, when people would push back against me, and I kind of admit that I'm doing it to stir it up when I talk about so much crap about Alex. Like, but you can't deny he did all these things and all these things. But I take nothing away from him. He was brilliant, but that doesn't mean he didn't make a lot of mistakes along the way. And like what we're all saying, not consolidating is an important thing, because as soon as you died, gone.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Great conqueror, terrible ruler.
yes, and like that's what I was looking up, because during the Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage, there was this Carthaginian named Maharbal, and he criticized Hannibal. He's like, you know how to gain a victory, but you don't know how to use it. And I think that applies to Alexander, because the smartest thing would have been to, you know, consolidate. Because as you're covering now, the madness that comes after.
Yes, a lot of it happens. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about, the fact that a lot of these empires that grow from like a tiny speck into something absolutely world spanning, the problem is that they take tiny little tribal politics between small families that are regional and then just spread it out across an empire, and now great, we can kill each other over it.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I think that probably if Alexander wasn't murdered this time around, he probably would have been murdered if he had survived longer.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Just because...
100% agree. Which means that his paranoia towards the end of his life wasn't unfounded, but you know what? I'm not going to give him any credit for anything.
I feel like his paranoia is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's
it
the
makes
other thing.
people dislike him,
Yes.
and he gets more paranoid and it gets worse.
He would have been paranoid anyway, yeah. Meredith, did you chime in on, do you think about the assassination? Did you think?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess mine's only one. Complicated answer, because I complicate things. I think Alexander was in on it. I don't think Olympias was in on it.
What?
Okay.
What?
I wish,
How?
listeners, I wish you could have seen the faces that Umberto and I just made. Because
You think Alex was in on it, but not Olympias? Why?
As we have all covered in our respective podcasts, everyone likes to dump on Olympias, and it comes from a lot of misogynistic places.
fair.
All of the stuff about her poisoning Aridaeus early in his life, which led to his disability, stuff like that, the snake stuff. I mean, and like some of that could be true, but there are a lot of times they're twisted, you know.
Yeah, no, powerful women are always portrayed as like these incredibly evil witches, because how would they be powerful otherwise? There's no other
Exactly.
reason why a woman would be powerful. So clearly she must be the incarnation of evil.
Yeah, you all mentioned that with what you made the very apt comparison to Agrippina. And it's just like, I mean, I can't say any better than you did, Sariel. It's just, you know, powerful women are always portrayed as achieving and exercising that power through subversive means. And so I look at that, and you know, the stuff about the snake, and you know, and that cult, you know, that could have been a legit religious cult. I'm sure it was, but whenever I would read it, I always just get those vibes of her being portrayed as some sort of sorceress, other kind of thing, and like dangerous, mysterious, weird. I mean, I snuggle our cat all the time, and no one comes into the bedroom and says, I'm cavorting with Hecate or something like that. I'm snuggling our kitty. But why, when she's snuggling her snake, all of a sudden, oh, it's, you know, Zeus, and you're going to lose an eye. Well, but that's what he gets for peeking. Being a creep. But, Philip, that is. So I see so many things that are just, oh, you guys said this. Whenever something goes wrong, Olympias. I'm just like, it's not all her fault, y'all. And so, when we look at Alexander, he's petulant, he's ambitious, he's paranoid, he's impatient, he rage quits. I'm having so many flashbacks of previous roommates I've had. And it's just, I know the type of guy. We've seen this, the type of guy that does all this crap, but nothing's ever his fault. It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah.
And furthermore, I mean, like, let's also take into account the very patriarchal, misogynistic world that the ancient world was, and the reality for women if this was really Olympias' fault, and if she was really that well known to have been on this, I don't think she would have lasted that long. And if there really was that concern...
Yeah, no, I was thinking that I think Alexander was too much of a mama's boy to not have told her or gotten her in on the plot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He didn't start, if she didn't have the idea first, he would have definitely said, hey, let's kill Dad together.
And he goes, Happy Mother's Day.
Like everyone does.
Yes.
I feel like that's what you and the cat say when let's kill Dad today.
Let's kill Dad.
Yeah. So so who does y'all's edits?
I do. It's just generally me showing up doing beep boop beep boop.
Beep boop beep boop.
Yeah. I do the very rough first pass of like ums and the mistakes and the large gaps of
nice.
silence, and then I turn it over to
tangents.
Yeah. I'll come back to him. I'll be like, "You explained this thing to me very well, but I think I'm probably the only one that didn't understand it, so we just need to cut it." And then he does all the fancier stuff of taking something we said at the end and putting it at the beginning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to like episode 0 or episode -1 that we never published, it's more. It's
same.
More of
Absolutely same.
We should
more
actually
like
make
it was
that.
a terrible edit, and eventually we should actually release.
We should make it available like on Patreon or something.
We said like in the first episode, it's just like this is like episode 1 technically, but also episode 5 because when you talk about the stuff that we never released or stuff like that.
We did. We originally, what is our introduction episode, and then the Philip episode was all one episode, and we sent it out to some friends with a survey, and we're like, thoughts, feelings, things. And I love this friend, but I knew it was them, even though they didn't put their name. They're like, this is over 90 minutes long. They're like, and Disney's The Lion King is only 90 minutes long. They're like, do you think this is better than The Lion King? And we're like, all right, cut it in half.
Oh, damn!
Damn.
And
Burn.
then
Alright.
They didn't need to stab you guys.
No.
Oh, we asked for it.
No, we asked. We. Well, it was funny because you got the friends that were like, we're so proud of you. This is great. And then you got the friend that's like, you are not better than The Lion King. And we're like, thank you. We needed to hear. But then we got to you minis and we're like, he's just so wonderful. We're not going to cut any of this down.
Certified best boy. That's right.
Oh, you meant such a good person. So sad he didn't end up winning.
So
and
sad.
Isn't
doing
that
well.
always the way?
Also, the silver shields. Why?
Oh my God.
Petulant old men.
Oh, they tick me off.
Why did you do this? You won. The battle was over. You just had to wait and... Ugh.
Oh my God. It's
But
just
no.
like, we won. Time to surrender. We should probably surrender.
That's how it works, right? That's a
Yeah.
normal strategic decisions.
I think that's kind of like how I would imagine myself if I ever went to Vegas and gambled. It's just like, I won the jackpot. I'm gonna sell my house now. I really just gotta cover my bets. Also, like the idea that these guys were in their 70s and the historical consensus seems to believe that.
Yeah, it must have been just remaining, dropping like flies, and just in the meantime, now let's take Eumenes with us. He is a good boy, but we will destroy him.
These guys are like, we're ready to retire, man. It's pension time. Yeah, but then as Meredith said too, it's just the whole idea of like they took their wives with them.
On battle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that was
sorry,
not
what?
a smart plan.
Yeah.
Who?
Well, since we were going on Olympias, we had one of the questions that we received was who would win in a fight between Olympias and Parasatis if all the things misogynist historians ascribe to them were true.
If they happen to be these like incredibly powerful
Yes,
sorceresses,
if it was actually
like,
it. Yes, and I was looking up Parasatis' CV this morning while preparing for
CV.
this. And Parasatis annihilates a family because they killed her daughter. Like, not just the close family, like the entire dynasty is
the
gone.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, she marries one of her half brothers to usurp another half brother and has him suffocated in ash.
Oh, yep. This is all starting to
That
ring
was
a bell.
fun. The ash room was good. Then she supports one of her sons in a civil war against the other son, and has the people who supported her victorious son, the king, murdered in horrible, horrible ways. She kills the new queen, but with a cool poison trick, but
Yeah, have you
not
ever
cool.
heard of, oh, I couldn't possibly choose among my children which one's my favorite? Well, she could. Like,
Definitely good.
Like, let's, ma'am, no, you could.
You could and you have.
you did.
Yeah.
and you did,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she lived to 100 out of spite because there was one guy she still had to kill and didn't manage to. And then once she killed him, finally it was over. So she was a lot. And
I was about to say, I
don't
feel like
know.
she wins.
She's so intense.
So, all right, well, let's do, in comparison,
Let's give a rundown
of
of
Olympias.
Olympias.
I'm like, okay, so I come from a place that even the Macedonians call rednecks. I tangle with snakes. I sleep with snakes. I will kill everyone around me at any given time. I will get on a horse in a suit of armor and fight. Hashtag feminism, hashtag girl boss. I tell my son that he's the son of Zeus because he needed that confidence boost. And that through me, he's also related to Achilles because he needed more of a confidence boost.
I poison his older half brother.
And then I send my daughter-in-law, who's not really my daughter-in-law, options on how to kill herself. And
Right, that was terrible.
You know, when you get passive-aggressive comments, but this is just dialed to 11.
yeah, we haven't gotten to it. You all may have covered it, but like in Cassandra's episode, I'm just going to go ahead and sneak peek. There's a little bit of cannibalism going on, I think.
Love that. You know, just add a bit of spice.
She killed over 100 people in Macedon when she got in there. I'm still going to say Parasatis.
I think what I like about Parasatis is the absolute spite that she had
Yep.
for everybody.
Right.
She had like a list and she had to go through all of it.
Yes.
And even though she's 100 years old, she is not going to rest until that last person is dead.
Because we even get...
Destroy everything.
Was it she was mad at the wife of one of her sons? Or who
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
in the family? Right, so like... And her son is like, please, Mom, don't kill my wife. Please.
Like, and now I have to.
So like at the beginning she's like, okay, you know, I'm not happy about this, but you know what? I will listen to you because you're my son. I will kill the rest of her family, but I will spare your wife. And then she gets back for her. Like she goes back for her at some point, I believe.
At some
Yeah,
point,
she
whenever it's
does.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, well, now
Yeah.
I can get her.
Yeah, like later down the line,
Yeah.
she still has this like vendetta in her.
Parasatis is the reason that university syllabi are like 20 pages, at least over here now, because students have over the years just been lawyering their professors so much that you have to have everything covered in there, because if you don't, they're going to say, you didn't say I couldn't do this. You said I couldn't use my notes. You did not say I couldn't use someone else's notes.
Yep.
Yes, nobody
Listen,
told
find the
Parasatis she
loophole.
couldn't have somebody eaten alive by insects, so she did it.
Right.
That was fine.
No, it's like you said, don't kill her. You didn't say don't kill her family.
Grammar matters.
Yeah, that was intense.
That, just the sheer scale of it in like a 100-year career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so impressive how she destroyed so much, and
And
just,
she built a
I-
murdering machine. Just
Oh, yeah,
because
she built a
she
special
had so
ash
many
room to
people
suffocate
to
people.
assassinate that she was like, I can't do it all by hand. I need a machine.
Ooh, well, that was kind of my thing when we covered in Baby Alex's episode where Roxana has the other two Persian wives killed, and the primary
yeah.
source makes it sound like
Oh,
she
right.
killed them with her own hand. I'm like, did she do it herself?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, it's like in the Office, which we're those people. And it's just like when Pam's gonna punch Michael at the end of the day, she's like, "You need to be worried, Michael. Pam got that crazy pregnant strength."
Yeah.
Zero. Oh my god. But I think Parasatis has it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have
I
to
agree.
take this one.
I'm glad we all came to a consensus.
That's true. That's good. We should take notes of this, like Heracles, Aridaeus.
Oh, what we
what we
agreed
agree and
on.
what we disagree on.
Yes. Have a quiz at the end. See who paid attention.
I actually, going back to the Aridaeus thing, I actually did some research for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you said, all right, so as a throwing a bone, the Roman historian Justin, not Dustin, that's me. The Justin does say that King Aridaeus was instructed to take Alexander's body to Egypt. I think Arrian claims that as well, but then I did a little translating for you. The fragment, one of the fragments of Arrian by the Greek historian Photius, I actually did the whole translations here, which I'm not going to try to butcher the Greek, but
Nice.
what I translated strictly was, but Arhidaeus, comma, the one guarding the body of Alexander, diverted it to Egypt. And now I'm going to really invite a lot of criticism from me. I take that to be an articular participle, not a relative pronoun, which would mean that it's not Arhidaeus who was guarding the body, it's Arhidaeus the one, as opposed to the other guarding the body.
I see.
Yeah. It's like
Interesting.
it's the Greek weird way of trying to address the fact that there were other Arhidaeuses. And the idea that then Justin also says later that Arhidaeus was in Cappadocia with Perdiccas before the attack on Egypt. And then we later have an instance where the other Arhidaeus, when they explicitly say was briefly appointed as regent of the kings alongside somebody else. So there's an
Is that still from Photius?
Yes, it is from Photius. Yep,
Okay,
it is from Photius. And then in 319 we have an Arhidaeus who is cited as besieging a town. So I don't know if we keep that or toss it or whatever.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was looking through my notes and I put so much time into that. I at least wanted to say it.
No, definitely. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, not sure if it's addressed in the paper or not, but hey.
Oh, I definitely.
There we go.
I'm gonna go find Dr. Morris's dissertation. I want to read that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, also, just because you mentioned Justin, I need to put in my obligatory. I hate Justin. Why couldn't you just leave Pompeius Trogus alive and read his work? The end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Justin, his actual history is actually it's the abridgment of another history by a guy named Pompeius Trogus. So when we're reading Justin, we're reading his epitome, basically his commentary or his, Didn't we have a question on Alex the Fourth?
It was mostly Baby Alex !
Sure.
I agree.
That's almost
Yes,
a question.
Baby Alex was an individual.
And it was exciting.
Yes, he reigned for a longer time than his father.
Mm-hmm.
That was impressive. He was a person. He has nice sculptures as Pharaoh. He, looks very athletic for a 10-year-old.
I think the Egyptians were very generous in their description of him because they say that he
definitely
conquered things, he had the strength of a lion, and they'd never met him before. Taking a lot on faith there.
Yeah, they're trustworthy people. It worked great.
And yet, I will say, it does... Okay, I'll pose the question.
Mm-hmm.
How serious do you think that the successors, were in regard to really following him, or was he just a figurehead in their mind?
I don't think anyone would have... I think the fact that... You got to the end of Baby Alex, yes. So the fact that he ends up killed by Cassander is just lucky for everyone else that doesn't have to take the blame. I think if anyone else had been the regent, if Antigonus had been the regent, Ptolemy, whoever, Baby Alex would have had an accident and would have disappeared. I don't think anybody really wanted him to be king or cared enough. I think the only people who cared enough to maybe have him be king were all the successors who were left out and didn't have a domain and wanted to just reset the playing field, but I don't think anybody would have allowed him to live that long. But Serial, yes, your thoughts.
I don't have that many, honestly. Just it's a small child, and I don't think he would have lasted long either way.
Yeah, I guess another way to ask my question was just like, clearly when he's a kid, no one's going to do what he says because he's a kid. But like, do you think that they were that there was some sincerity in the idea of like, when this kid grows up, he's gonna be the king, and we're gonna follow him, and this is real?
No, it might have been different if the empire had been somewhat stable.
Yeah.
And then someone would have been like, well, it's worth having a regent and then continuing the dynasty so that we avoid a civil war, we avoid everything just going terribly wrong. So more people might have been interested in like actually keeping things the way they are, or like putting themselves in power, but like using baby Alex as like, no, we are just, being regent, and then like that way I have a chance to take the throne, but also nobody will rebel, I guess, what I'm doing. But like everything was like, Alexander died and everything was just on fire, so
Yeah, I saw one possible universe where baby Alex makes it, and that is the alternate universe where Eumenes survives and makes everything okay. And then I think Eumenes would have been like, yes, baby Alex, here's your crown now that you're 16. Congratulations, you can be king. In that unlikely event, I think it would have worked.
I wanted to bring up one point. There is the fact about Alexander IV and his depiction as a pharaoh. I pointed this out in our episode. We can date that. It's around 315, which would be right around the time that Cassander had thrown Alexander IV in prison, for lack of a better term. So it strikes me as odd or notable that they put so much effort into creating this cult worship, the dedication, this depiction of him, but if he didn't matter, like, why go through the effort?
I feel like that falls in a little bit with the fact that even after Alexander IV had been killed, the successors, until like 311 or something, continue to sign things in the name of King Alexander IV. And they weren't kings, they were just generals for King Alexander. And I think it was just a manner of, nobody has any legitimacy otherwise,
I think that's
we
it.
need to find a way to pretty it up. Because otherwise, I'm king just because I have the biggest army. Sure, that works, but only for so long.
Yeah, there's this component of constitutional theory, and it's going to sound silly and repetitive, but it's like one of the final steps of developing constitutional thought is constitutional rules, and it's the idea that not only do we all agree as a group on something, but we all agree that part of the identification and membership of this group, whatever it is contingent on us following the same rules. Like, not only we're in a group, but you're only in this group if you follow these set of rules. And I think Alex IV and Arrhidaeus, that's the role they played, which is unfortunate because that means they're basically pawns and figureheads, but it's just that idea of exactly what you said is like, otherwise, we're going to rip each other apart. We all know we're going to backstab each other. So the only way to prevent, me from screwing you over, from screwing you over, is just the idea of like, okay, we can all agree that we're serving under these kings. And that's the bond that's keeping us together. Which is to say, no, they didn't care. Okay.
Yeah, well, and the universe I seeing it working is if he'd been a bit older when Alex died. Like, if he had maybe been 10 or so, because things fall apart relatively quickly, like in those first 4 years. And it's a little different if after 4 years you're like, well, he's 14. Like, that's almost manhood, whereas in the reality he was only 4 years old. We've got easily another 10 years to have to hold this for him. So I think if he had been a little older and could have come of age faster.
Yeah, I think if Alexander had followed the advice of, who was it, Antipater and Parmenion, to get married and have a child before heading off on the expedition, then that child probably would have had more of a chance at
Would
least.
have made much more sense, but guess what? This is the
But
gay
no.
agenda, everybody. This is why the empire fell.
Dude, you
It's
have
all Hephaestion's fault. Hephaestion made the empire fall.
you conjure memories, and that's a good segue. You conjure memories. I remember I was hanging out with this guy one time, and like, whatever the guy's like, walked in like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm watching the Alexander movie," and I said, "What do you think?" And he was like, and I gotta give, he's like, "Well, I like it, but I just don't like the fact that they say he's gay."
Listen, when we were talking before about how Alexander liked the Iliad, and he just read like the beginning, and he got to the part of Achilles just being enraged and murderous, and was like, "Well, great, I got everything I need to know about Achilles, my so-called ancestor." I think he just got the murderous rage and be gay. Okay. I got
The two tenets of his personality.
I don't know if it was I don't know if it was your Alexander part 1 or your Alexander part 2, but like when the topic of like Barcina and Roxana come up and Sarl goes like, they're trying so hard to make him bi.
Which would be fine, you know? Like, of course, we also need more bi
Yeah.
representation, and it bi erasure is very, very
Yeah.
intense and prevalent, because people just prefer to like be like, oh, you're either one or the other, and there's
Yeah.
no middle ground, which is ridiculous. But in Alexander's story in particular, I find it so funny that like it's
No.
always such a problem for everyone in the kingdom that Alexander just cannot just get a wife and have a kid so that the empire doesn't just go down the drain immediately. And everyone's just like, Alex, please. And he's like, no, I'm just gonna go conquer this other place. I'll be right back.
I just love the vibe you're portraying too. I can just like, as you're sitting, I can just like see his advisor. He's like, will you stop it? Just stop. Just stop it.
It's like, all right, you've married at least 3 women. Take them with. It's like take them.
One of them.
Like,
Yeah.
One.
What
We
do you
don't need
want?
all of them to be pregnant.
I know,
just
it's
one.
like, you want to keep traveling? Fine. Take them with you.
Like, do you want a carrot? Do you want a cookie? What do you want? What incentive can I give you here? We have made up a son, and that didn't work. What's it gonna take? What's it gonna take?
I just love the fact that Roxana becomes pregnant just like 2 months after Hephaestion died. Mm-hmm. They had like 4 years of being married before, but nothing. And then 2 months after Hephaestion's gone,
I feel
boom,
bad for
child.
Roxana in that regard, because she's like, really? When your best friend dies, then I get some sugar?
I feel bad for Alex. Like, I'm sorry that Hephaestion is dead.
Still, he went and exterminated a whole mountain tribe to feel better.
As you do.
Yeah, of course.
See, every time I try to root for Alexander and be like, you know, he has some good parts, like as mythology goes, right?
Right.
It's like this character, there's barely a person anymore. But then you remember that like
does
he's
a
just
lot.
the worst.
That's the
And I'm
thing.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Or I feel like any moment of ingenuity where you're like, oh, that was brilliant, you realize, well, that also ended with the destruction of some town. So like I look at you
Yeah.
know the island of Tyre, and I'm just like, oh, that is just like
right.
so impressive. You built a land bridge, so now that this
Yeah.
thing like to this day isn't even an island anymore. I'm like, and then you massacred all those people.
Everybody.
So I don't think I should really celebrate that.
Or Thebes. When even Alexander, when Alexander feels bad about it, and let's just go ahead and call a spade a spade, dude's probably a sociopath, okay? Let's just kind of say it.
You don't get to be any kind of dictator without, you know.
Yeah, you're not an effective conqueror.
Or what you don't want to do in these situations is tell someone that their dad is a god, because then anything I do, it's like, but I'm a god.
Yeah. Like I'm essentially a god.
Yeah.
So can't do no wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think in like the book of Job, and you know, it's just like when God and Job are arguing, and God at one point is like, I'm sorry, did you create the world? Were you there? Have you slain Leviathan? I'm sorry, when you do those things, then we can talk. But see, the problem is, Alexander's the type of guy who's like, well, yeah, I'm the son of Zeus. Yeah.
So I technically, kind of basically did those things.
Of course I did. I was there. I just don't remember it right now because I don't feel like it. But I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. It must have been so annoying to everyone around him when he kept conquering and kept winning. It was like, God, it's gonna all go to his head more. He didn't need more to go to his head, but if he failed once, but no, he never does.
I can tell you, Umberto, that speaks to my soul. I am that guy. I know I'm salty about it. I know I'm bitter about it, but it just makes me mad that he just kept winning. Because every time that I was like, yeah, Alexander was dumb. He was stupid. He was just like he was arrogant frat boy. And they're like, yeah, but he conquered. I'm like, yeah, he did. I know. But like, damn it, it's just so many times it was luck. Like the whole thing of like when he almost died, and how many times in battle?
There were so many injuries, and at the beginning, he could have just died because he lost supplies. The Gadrosian Desert, he could have just disappeared there, which would have been very nice and mythical. I think historians would have loved that.
And how many times did he get sick and just not do it? Like, someone put a knife in this guy. Seriously.
And they did, and then somehow he was fine.
He was
from
fine.
The injury,
they pierced his lungs. That was cool too.
He got a 4-foot arrow through the chest and he walked away from it. It's not fair.
Like, after this, it's like, yeah, how are we gonna convince you that you're not the son of Zeus? Like, honestly, I'm beginning to doubt myself.
That's it. He makes you gaslight yourself because maybe I am wrong. Maybe he is that cool. Because he gets a 4-foot arrow through the chest. I have student loans to pay. Who's the loser now? You know?
Yeah, just need to find a statue of Alexander to fall to your knees and cry in front of.
Damn
Somewhere.
it. Caesar.
Overdone.
Caesar.
Yeah.
Well, I really feel like we tapped into a good conversation with the sexuality in the ancient world conversation. So I definitely invite us to return to that.
Please do.
Always happy to chime in, but also I kind of wish I actually knew more about this because it's a complicated, nuanced topic, and there's a lot of smart people who actually study this properly. For me to just be talking out of, whatever I feel is correct.
I'd like to invite you to tell us what you think.
Cool, excellent. I bring the knowledge of being a queer person online in 2023, and what the conversation that sparks around whenever someone brings up a historical figure and is like, oh, this person was so and so, and like uses modern labels, and then there's always someone who is like, oh, but you can't use modern labels, and then there's someone else who is like, oh, but you can't understand this kind of description of a feeling in the way that we understand it, like nowadays, and it's always like, man, can we just agree that like humanity has always had what we nowadays consider queer people in it, because it's just part of being a human being. Like, sexuality and gender identity and presentation are just a huge spectrum, and every culture has gone about it in their own different way. And there's also a very clear and very tangible erasure of that through Western history and through Western historians and Western culture. Like, that is undeniable.
Yeah.
Along with a lot of other things that have been lost about these cultures, right? Like, the fact that we live in a colonized world, like, has impacted how we look at history, which is then a problem when we're trying to look at the past and when we're trying to look at other cultures. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, that's why I brought up the anecdote of the friend of mine who was watching Alexander, because what I was trying to get across there was like, even, I shouldn't say even, because of course we're still having these issues, but 2,000 some odd years later, it's still just that point of contention, because some people just can't wrap their head around the idea of a non-heteronormative, sexual presentation. Which
is ridiculous, because, again, as much as you want to discuss about, like, oh, for example, in like ancient Greece, like homosexuality wasn't understood how we understand it now, or like it had to be with this or this other, or like, I don't care about that. Like, the issue that we're having is like you're looking at this through like the bigotry and the like phobia of a world that has been already not indoctrinated, I guess is not the correct word, but like already taught like that there's one correct way of doing things and then there's deviant ways of doing things. And that is relatively new in the sense of it's not new that people push one way of behavior on a society, right? But it is relatively new, this particular way, because this is how the world works now in like the past, I don't know, like maybe 300 years, the Western world. Which is not even, you know, the entire planet or the human race, because it isn't. We constantly see how colonizers like push down other cultures, like traditions and ways of expression and ways to understand things, because that's what it does. It makes everything uniform with the one way that they consider correct to. So if it changes from place to place, like even in the same time, imagine through time, like there's all these millions of cultures, each of them with their own understanding. So yeah, it of course it's still a problem. I hope it won't be a problem forever. I hope we'll just, not only regarding queer issues, but just regarding race, regarding just different costumes, different ways to just live, that humans will stop just trying to make each other change into like their own conceived, like, I'm not being very eloquent right now.
Yes, you are.
Their own preconceived like order of things, because like there's not just one way of being human, and that's just preposterous, thinking that like with the, how many billions are we on the planet right now? 8?
We've hit 8, yes.
Like, that's ridiculous that you would think that there's one way of being that everyone needs to follow.
Yeah.
Like, please. Can we please not kid ourselves? So yeah, you were bringing up like, yeah, your friend was like, oh, I didn't like that they showed him that like this is, you know, they're pushing this is representation into my movies, and it's like, how this, like, your point of view is not like in the entire history of humankind, it's not like the mainstream, because it can't be, because like it hasn't been in most places for most of the time. It's just where it is, like where you live right now at this moment.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
people need a bit more perspective and to be aware of, you know, a bit more empathy, and realize that most of this is not really, it's not harmful to allow for diversity.
Yeah, I mean, like, as you were saying, like, it stuck in my head. I just wanted to, like, talk to him, like, it's not your story, dude. Like,
Yeah.
the vitriol of, like, another guy agenda. I'm like, it's not your story. It's Alexander's story. Go look at the sources, you know. Yeah, and I agree with you, yeah. That was really well said.
Can you tell I have a lot of thoughts on the matter? But I get it that it's a topic that I like discussing, because I think it's interesting to hear different perspectives and just how people go about it, and what people get hung up on, right? Like,
Yeah.
everyone finds a different part that they either find more interesting or have more trouble like coming to terms with, or like have a different perspective about it. But yeah, I'm really happy that nowadays, not that it's only happening now, like I'm pretty sure there's a group of people who have always been trying to like avoid this like retelling of history, because there's always been people who care about what is actually, what, you know, quote unquote actually happened, or like how things were understood.
Yeah.
Which I guess is also what like historians and anthropologists do, right? Like trying to understand things from the perspective of other times and other cultures, which is really difficult because you don't always have someone with that perspective to ask and to be like, why is this different for you? Or what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, no, that I'm happy that at least it's being done more and more, that is there even an expression for this, like the decolonization of history? And like trying to
revisionist,
do away with like with like all of these stereotypes and all of these like retellings that have been so ingrained into like the way we have taught history for such a long time that we just take it for like this is actual history. And then you look a little bit into the sources and you're like, oh wait, actually no, this is just some white dude from the Victorian times who decided to not mention this whole entire part because he didn't feel comfortable with it, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, no, you just made so many good points there. I mean, I actually started taking notes. Most historians now, for speaking from my own like humble perspective, from my corner of it, it's not so much the whodunit questions, because most historians, have kind of, there's still some room obviously when you figure out something new, but a lot of it's moving beyond questions of what happened. Like, we know what happened, or we know what we think happened, or what we've been told happened. But now it's turning into questions of, if anything, it's, well, why and how, but also more historiographical questions of why has it been presented this way, or why has it been interpreted this way. Okay, for instance, I forget her name. I always forget her name, but there's a new translation of the Iliad. When I say new, it's probably 10 years.
Isn't it
Emily Wilson?
Thank you.
For the Odyssey, not the Iliad.
Yeah, Emily Wilson, like, that's one of my go-to whenever I talk about stuff like this too. Is like, we have how many? I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because how many old white men do we have translations of the Odyssey and things like that? And some people, I'm rolling my eyes for anyone who can't see it, which is most people. There are a lot of people push me like, why is every stupid person I give is a Southern accent. Is like, why is there's got to be a woman? What's special about that? I'm just like, why not, first of all? And what new can this show us? And the fact of the matter is, a lot, because the way that these things are translated, a lot of it has to do with the person translating it. I remember one example given to me was how she translated the noun of a servant or something like that, and one of the examples is like, people will try to soften a translation of the Greek word doulos, and just like, oh, just my servant, and it was like, no, slave. Like, do not sugarcoat things like that,
Yeah, turns out that there's not just one way to translate something, because especially something as old as the Odyssey, where you're also trying to grasp not just what a person who is living now is trying to say in their language, which I guess you could, like, if you're very privileged, you could like ask the person that you're translating from, if you're translating a book, which I don't believe is super common to be able to like talk to the original writer, but like if you can.
I've got Polybius on, speed dial.
Exactly, but if you're translating from someone who died many, many years ago, you also have to translate for like with your current modern brain.
Yes.
What things at the time might have meant, and now translating into modern language. And of course that is subjective. It puts a lot of the translator into the work.
Yeah. You're bringing in your internal biases to your translation. And like, that's one of the things that my advisor, one of the first things he gave me, like one of the biggest pieces of advice he gave me. I remember I went to his office. When I sat down, he was conversation, blah blah blah. But at one point, he was like, "Well, Dustin, what's your bias?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And like, I didn't go on defensive, but I went to the whole thing of like, "Well, I'm trying not to do bias, not to do this, not to have a bias." And he's like, "No, just what's your bias?" He's like, accept the fact that you do have a bias. It's natural. You can't help it. It's just You
live in your brain with your experience, so you have the
you
bias
have a
of
culture
your own
you've grown up in.
life.
Yeah, he's like, and the best thing you can do is, it's kind of like a Jungian shadow thing. It's like, be aware of it, incorporate it, acknowledge it, and proceed forward with that knowledge that everything you're bringing forward has a bias. So, I mean, and the reason I released the Kraken Sariel is because I was really intrigued by a lot of your comments just throughout episodes. Here's to Umberto, of course, but I perked up because you definitely, I could hear some passion. And I liked it because I'm really fascinated by gender studies too, and especially with the ancient world, if you want to study toxic masculinity, right? The fact that anyone lived past the age of 35 is amazing because of the heart attacks and the blood pressure from all the rage.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I try to keep it down, not to like tone it down, obviously, but like we're focusing on history, and I do like to focus on the personal aspect of things. Like I've said many times on our episodes, I like that people are still people. Like throughout all of history, you're talking about all of these achievements and like dates and battles and numbers of soldiers and strategies. But like when it comes down to a person, some of the decisions are just like, yeah, people are people, and they make human choices.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we're mythologizing many of them. We're like, the stories have been retold, and we barely treat some of these people as humans because that's what a story makes. But I love when you can still glimpse it and be like, yeah, this is just a person. Like, they were probably afraid. They were probably angry. They were probably in love. Like, it's humans just doing their thing. And I love when I get to just have a little bit of a comment or a discussion about like any of these topics, gender, sexuality, attraction, just like how it might have worked. And like also, you know, like I am aware I put a lot of my modern perspective in it, and I like shifting things into that area because I enjoy it, and because, you know, I feel like we've been so starved of queer perspectives and representation that I'm not going to apologize for putting my own in there, you know, especially because, yeah, I guess I am in my own bubble where these things are not like are fairly commonplace, right? And like most people are aware of these things. We have our jokes about it, and history will call them best friends, you know, kind of things. Anything but lovers.
Yeah, there's always the joke of, oh, and they were roommates.
Yeah. They were cousins, they were best friends, they were buddies, they were, you know, but I imagine that not everyone in our demographic listening to our podcast like might be as aware. So I'm happy that like you enjoy whenever I get to go into these topics and whenever we get to discuss them, you know, as carefully as we do. Like I said, I try not to go too much into it because I don't really have the studies to like back up if I make any assumptions. Like I go for vibes, but that might also be interesting to whoever is listening to like have this perspective, right? Because not everyone might think of it. So yeah, I appreciate it that you like it. That's really good to hear.
Yeah. How about I read you a series of things that I wrote down, which are some of my favorite quotes from you two.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness, sure.
Wow, flattered.
Oh yeah. Oh no, there was especially some of these most recent episodes I've just been cracking up about. Oh my god.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I get so worried that like everything I'm saying gets. I mean, I trust Umberto editing, right? I tell you, there's been more than once where we've stopped and I've been like, please do not let this make it into the podcast.
That's why every joke lands perfectly and nothing is wrong and everything is fine.
Of course.
I try to go to what we call the Johnny Carson routine. It's just like if it bombs, I double down and I talk about how it bombed, and
then you explain the joke because every joke is funnier if you have to explain it.
Yes, it is. Because then it's not my fault that it wasn't funny. It's your fault that it wasn't funny. And then if I keep going with that, then people start pitying me because I just don't get that it's not funny. And they're like, it's so sad. Okay, here's one. Sariel, I forgot the quote, but Sariel, that's a lot of demands, to which Umberto replied, come at me, scrubs. That was about Alex the Fourth.
Yes, fair.
Love that.
And now we're getting to the point where Dustin does not take contiguous notes, because this is a bunch of stuff that... Oh, yeah, I marked it. There he is. Okay, let's see.
Don't worry, I also don't take notes.
Yes.
Okay.
Notes are snakes were involved.
Snakes were involved, yeah.
Literally, I was like, do I have any notes about the Alexander episodes? First of all, I only have the first part and nothing for the second part. And in the first part, I had 3 notes. Two notes. One of them was Snake Lady.
Yeah.
Which, Olympia, but I didn't remember that. And the other was, the other one was to make a meme, the Lord Farquaad meme, men with wings. And I was like, Umberto, what did this mean? Why did I write this down? And he was like, oh yeah, because Alexander, they said that he could only conquer a certain city if he found men with wings. And then, I
remember that one.
A bunch of soldiers climb a mountain. And I assume not many of them made it, and so I wrote down the Lord Farquaad meme of many of you might die, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. So that's the notes I had on Alexander the Great. Wow,
That's
I am a
so...
great student.
All you need to know, 100%.
All right. Okay, here's a series. I think this is talking about, this was in our Hidiasis episode, when you're talking about the post-mortem of Alexander the Great.
Oh, God, that was terrible.
So here we go.
Oh my God.
Let's see. Sariel. Oh no. Oh yeah, I'm going to read them like deadpan. I think that's funnier that way.
Please do.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, I need a minute. Oh my hell. I'm not ready for. Oh God, no. Dear, and then followed by, Dear Lord, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time moving on from this. Then they mummified him alive, to which Umberto replies,
God.
well, he wasn't alive for long.
God.
To which,
I still cannot.
case in point, to which Sariel stated, this will stick with me for the years to come.
I hate that. Why did you have to bring it up
Yeah.
again?
I love it.
I hate it.
You hate it? That was what I had to rewind and write that down because it made me laugh so much.
I mean, I hate the fact that they mummified him alive.
Oh, you hate that? Well, he did.
Yeah, I don't hate my reaction. I think my reaction is very on point, actually.
Yeah.
I watched way too many, well, for a period, I watched way too many, medical drama, like House and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, so I know just enough to not know anything. All I know is, from this stuff, what if he had, locked-in syndrome where he was, conscious and aware the entire time, but he could not move. And he was like,
This man anxiety's so bad.
He's like, oh, they're pulling my brain out of my nose. That's...
Yeah, you're hoping they did the brain out of the nose first, and then the rest probably made it easier.
But you know what? You know what the lesson is? If you're hoping that, probably didn't.
Ancient history, if you're hoping the good version happened, it didn't.
Well, that's always my joke, too, and, it's come up a few times with Meredith, and just so everything's going right. Everything's going well. Let's mess it up.
Yep.
Yeah, everything.
lasts for
Yeah,
long.
the episode that's going to come out this Sunday basically has that. Everything is too quiet. Let's destroy it because we need something fun to happen. Okay, good. Everything on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I know exactly the episode.
Yeah.
I hated that. That was so ridiculous.
Hated that.
Because it was literally that. Just it could have been fine, but I guess not enough was happening. So
Don't you just get, you made a really good point earlier, sorry, it was just I have to remember these people are human. God knows I do stupid things. But sometimes you just want to go back in time solely for skipping all the good stuff you could do with time travel, just so you can go and shake them by the shoulders and be like, why? I need to know why. What were you thinking?
just slap them.
Yes.
Be like,
Yeah.
Can you stop?
Yeah.
yeah.
With Alexander burning Persepolis.
Yeah,
I do.
yes.
Why?
Yes.
I recently
things-
saw some things and there's still fire marks on it. And it's my dude, why did you have to burn this? It was a nice place. It was yours. You didn't need to.
And that's what annoys me about Alexander, the social privilege, because it's just he has these moments of impulse, yeah, burn it down. It's just kill it all. And then the next day he's like, Oh my god, who did that? That's terrible.
Oh no.
Kill this other guy.
I was poorly advised.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
did you
It
let
was my
me do
advisors.
this?
What happened?
You said it.
Yeah, he's like, and like, then the guards are like, if we tell him he did it, he'll think we're blaming him, and then he'll kill us.
Oh no.
All right, so here's a question.
Yeah. Yes.
As a Persian king, how do you think he did?
Well, we went into it during the rating, but as a Persian king, he absolutely sucked. Because he took an empire that was nice, it was recovering after a period of a bit of stagnation, and it was improving, it was doing better, and then after Alexander, it's gone. And not only is Iran going to not have a native dynasty for the next 200 years, also all the different cultural elements have been destroyed, the records of the empire are gone, cities have been burned to the ground, a lot of people are dead. Civil wars abound. No. Yeah, Ariel.
I'm just like, my brain is just wondering right now, like, how did people come to mythologize this man to like such an extent, right? Like to such a, because yeah, I get it, great conqueror, but like, where, like after actually reading and like listening to like through all the things that actually happened before him and after him, and like, why did you choose this man to be the person you want to imitate? Like, why? What, was he just pretty? Like, what? Honestly, what? Why?
It's a nice statue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will say, like, at the most, like, bare bones on paper outline of facts, it's pretty phenomenal. But then, you know, the moment you take a moment to kind of dig deeper and look at the full context of things, you're like of all the people you can admire, like of all the heroes you can have as a fellow dictator, conqueror, military person, right? Which is what, seriously, this guy, the one who like just made random decisions to like, you know, burn down cities that he already owned, like, and whose empire essentially collapsed after he died. See, when you phrase it like that.
that was a delayed hit. I was like, oh, whoa, yeah.
Like,
I own this, burn it to the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that's why I was saying, you know, I'm almost more impressed with his father, Philip II, because if you want to talk about somebody that took their realm like in a state of crisis, in a state of flux, and left it, you know, good and secure with an heir who was an adult, you know, and had revolutionized the military and gotten everything set and stabilized and good so that you could even entertain the idea of leaving your country to go conquer another country.
Right.
To me, that means so much more than you being able to win battles, conquer, you know, another empire. Not to sell it short, but as we said, you know,
it didn't last.
Yeah, it doesn't last.
Like, he had it for his lifetime, and then it was gone. So, you know.
Yeah. My question for you actually is, how well do you think Alexander would have done as a successor?
To himself?
Of himself, yes.
Oh, okay. I was
if he had been suddenly
himself.
soul passed into someone else.
That's a great question. I actually I have an idea, which is why.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I hate being put in this spot too.
Well, it's more that I know if I'm going to... Yeah, I won't stop.
I mean, there's undeniable strokes of brilliance there. It's this tricky thing because, you know, we would kind of go back and forth about what do you hold against somebody? Because on the one hand, we sit there and we're like, look at the mess that came after he died, and yet he's dead. And like, can you lay that blame at his feet solely? I mean, yes, okay. Yes. I will say from like a military standpoint, since most of what the successors seem to be doing or trying to do is gain military control over the empire and stabilize it, I think in that aspect he probably would have been good, because we did see some like moments of pretty genius and strategic military tactics. So I think he, in terms of a successor, like once again, I don't think he'd be the person that once everything was settled to actually be able to run it. But I think, you know, for example, kind of like Eumenes, he was getting things settled militarily. Now Eumenes was the, you know, the triple threat. He could have conquered it, settled it, and ruled it.
Yes.
But I think Alex would have been a good person to deploy to areas of unrest and put down. I don't think the administrative parts there.
I mean, we discussed in our podcast that Alexander made for a great general, just not a great ruler. But like, if he had stayed as like military ruler for like under Philip's command, like unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, alas.
Yes, Dustin.
Yeah, but the problem is, I don't think Alexander would ever have been satisfied in any
No.
form of a subordinate role.
No.
No.
Which is why we all seem to agree that he definitely was in on his dad's death. But how would he do as a successor? Could you do it? I don't think so. I don't think he could. We actually do have a little bit of a comparison for that. I know that you all ran into him, Demetrius, Poliorcetes, the besieger of cities.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Yes. Okay.
Who's basically Alexander, you know, the 2.0 or something like that, in the sense that he's the example of what would happen if Alexander did not get lucky every time, I feel.
Yeah, I can
Which
see that.
Demetrius is this?
This is one of the earlier Demetriuses.
Okay.
You remember when Seleucus is an old man and just throws off his armor and says, "Do you really want to work for this loser? Just come to my side." And everybody was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And they just moved.
I mean,
Remember him? Yeah.
Yes.
he's the guy that drank himself to death.
Yes.
Oh, yes, right.
Which, let's
I
be
remember.
honest, given enough time, Alexander
it's
would do the
Alexander
same
too.
thing. And
Well,
some argue that that's what he did do.
I was like, that
gonna
is
say.
one of the supposed causes of death. It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was brilliant general, like you all,
Yeah, like to be fair, since the empire that he was handed down was relatively stable, like that was the time to go out and conquer, right?
and he was the guy to do
The
it.
problem is he did it too well,
Yeah.
to a point where he didn't bother to actually what's it called? Consolidate what he had, and so yeah,
Now we flip it, so let's imagine that he was in an empire that was on the precipice of collapse. There would have been people who would have viewed him not as the leader, but viewed him as a very credible threat. They would have murked him. Yeah, I don't think he could have done it. He would have been one of the power players, I'll give him that. The charisma, undeniable. Undeniable charisma. Undeniable prowess on the battlefield.
exactly. So if it came down to actual battles, like some kind of civil war, like deciding who will get to rule, he would have done great in those. But then I don't know like what he would have done afterwards.
He's such a good example of the power of charisma, though.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I was going to mention this, like when Meredith, you before said like, oh, the statues are really good, right? Or because I was like, was he pretty? Like, why are people so obsessed with him? And I'm like, I mean, I mean it in a serious way. Like, marketing has always been important.
Yeah.
And Alexander's marketing, in a way was incredible, of like how appealing he made himself be, or like people made him be after the fact.
Yeah.
And I love how you can see in the statues how they like get progressively more stylized, and like the first ones we have are very like, he still looks like a real person, and then he just looks like a representation of Apollo, which I am like, yeah, come on guys.
Yeah, well, and I think you even shared with me that like later statues we see of Pompey,
Yep.
he has the same hairstyle
Yep.
as
Just
Alexander.
mentioned that in the last
Yeah.
episode we published.
Yeah.
We were about to publish, but yes.
It's just that whole thing of just like the little tuft in the middle of like the youthful look. I'm like, comb your hair. But also,
Like, don't get me wrong, I do love him because I do love this representation of Alexander. Like, it aesthetically is just very pleasing and very interesting. But like, that's why then when you get to actually look at the person historically, you're like, What?
Yes.
What is going on? Who is this man?
But the other thing about Pompey's statue, because he's a soft boy in that statue, and that's the reason too, because the Roman style was verisms. Like, if you were, that's what I always, whenever I introduce in my class, I'll show up like a classical, like just standard, Roman bust. I'm like, look at this man. This man is ugly, and he wants you to think that he is ugly. He wants it because I was like, I need to look rough and tough.
Yeah, it's like a real,
Man.
rugged person that, kind of looks like it could be a person.
Yes,
Just with all
yeah.
the-
I've seen a thing or two. But with, Pompey seems to be emulating that youthful Alexandrian look.
Yeah, I love how much into it Pompey gets. He's just such an Alexander fanboy. Like,
It's such
we mentioned this in the episode we got where we were, but when
cosplayer.
Yes.
when he gets all the way to Armenia, he wears Alexander's cloak. He asks a passerby, "How far is India? Can I get to it this way?"
Just see him with like a map. I'm just like, is it on I-95? We take a left here, then we miss the exit.
It's like, well, he cut through that desert and that went great, so let's cut through the desert too.
Let's try it. Let's go. Desert
If
2.
he could do it, I can do it.
Anyone who wants to come at me for not being nice to Alexander, I'm like, he told his soldiers, let's go march into the desert so someone can totally give me an objective opinion on whether or not I'm really Zeus's son. That's at the top of the list of things you need to do when you're conquering the Persian Empire. Go march 350 miles west into the desert, get lost, talk to snakes, and then have no suspicions when you get there and they come out like, the son of Zeus, and he's like, I told you.
Pack it up, turn around, we're done.
The epitome of this could have been an email.
Yeah.
Yes, could have just sent a letter. It would have been fine. They would have probably said he's the son of Zeus anyway, but still.
Well, I do the talking to snakes. He just learned that from his mother.
That's true. That's just keeping it in the...
Listen, snakes are just cool animals. What can I say? Love them.
I've never seen an upset snake.
Me neither.
You have... What kind of snake do you have, Sariel?
I had no longer, but I had a boa imperator. Adorable, very chill.
Imperator.
Yeah.
Because real generals don't have to get, toxic men, boy rage.
Exactly.
Real generals declare themselves emperor after winning a battle.
Indeed. So I think we need to be heading out. Because we've booked ourselves a massage. And we're going to go get it.
Nice.
It has...
Jealous.
Congratulations.
It's been so long. Yeah.
Please enjoy it.
I think when I look down, my hamstring just like tightens. So, thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
Thank you. We
This was
had a
lovely.
great time. It was really fun.
I pity whoever has to edit this, but
Yes, we'll figure out who that is.
Not it.
we'll see if we make one episode or two.
Just
'cause
rock,
we-
paper, scissors.
Yeah, I volunteer as tribute. I have one final question. Can we do this again sometime?
I'd love that.
Very
This was very
happily,
fun.
yes. Once you get to the Seleucids,
Yeah.
we have lots of stuff to do and talk. And Antiochus the Great, who is best boy.
Yes, him.
He kind of deserves it. Man lost his teeth,
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people.
but kept going. Have you been kicked in the face by a horse?
No, I was stepped on by a horse.
There you go.
Dang.
It's fine.
But yes, very happy to redo this another time.
This was so much
Had
fun.
lots
Let's
of
do
fun. It's very
Some
good.
kind of outro,
Oh,
I guess.
yep.
Thank you to everyone who has tolerated this, and I hope you all enjoyed it. We know we have over here at the old standard.
We did too here in the ranking Persia because the real name is long.
No, yeah, this has been great.
Really, really enjoyed
Great.
this. And
And-
thanks everybody who listened to the very
Yes,
end.
thank you, lovely
I hope you enjoyed
listeners
it.
from every end.
Our listeners are awesome. We love our listeners.
Lovely, lovely people. Thank you for listening.
So thanks.
We hope you have a great one, and we'll catch you on our respective episodes next time. If you haven't checked out the Alexander Standard, please do.
And go listen to So You Think You Can Rule Persia and see if they ever answer the question.
We're trying.
Perfect.
All right, everybody.
Eventually.
Take care.
Okay.
Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Goodbye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.